So I'm going to go over how to get ready for your final presentation for your compare and contrast, which is your exam grade. So this is my compare and contrast presentation that I will share with you, and you can see the order of things and also get further information for you to make sure that you've added the right information. This is what you all have. You all have a compare and contrast that you finished. You finished 3. First, you compared and contrasted 2, and then you added an additional 3rd. So what I'm asking you for this is to just choose 2 of those 3 artworks for you to compare in your presentation, your slide presentation. So everything that's required for your slide presentation, you already have it. Here's my example. What made you choose these 2 artworks? I have that answer. I have artwork number 1. I have my image of the artwork. I have the formal analysis completed. Here it is. I have the content analysis. Questions answered here. I have links to what I was looking at to get the answers for the content questions here. Here are all my content questions that I answered for artwork number 1. And then the third part for that would be talking about the intention of the materials. Why you think that they used oil paint. Why do you think they used fabric? And this again is your own personal opinion. You do have to add one thing to your slides, which you did not have for your first iteration of this assignment, which is if you talk about oil paint being the medium used, you need to put down the definition of oil painting or the definition of the medium, what it means. If it was an engraving, what is the definition of an engraving so that you have that information in your slide presentation? That's one of the new things, one of 2 very small new things for the slide presentation that you may not have had for the first iteration of this assignment. Artwork number 2, here it is. Formal analysis, ready to go. Content analysis, I still need to put my links right here, but I answered all my questions. My source links. The media, talking about why Dürer used an engraving for this particular artwork. And then the compare and contrast of the 2 artworks can be in bullet points. There's the similarities and there's the differences, the comparing and the contrasting. I have everything done. If I have everything completed in full, I can now make a slide presentation, which will be your final exam grade. And we will talk more about how you are going to present this information. This is just how you're putting the information together into a slide presentation. Your first slide should be compare and contrast, the title of the first piece, the artist, the word and, the title of the second artwork, and the title of the second artist. The next 2 slides are those art pieces. The 4th slide should be those 2 images, those 2 artworks together on one slide, and the reason why you chose the 2 artworks. Again, you already answered this question. It's the first question on the sheet. Then the next slide would be talking about the first artwork. First artwork image, the first artwork information. This is what might be new unless you had it for some reason. I didn't ask for it, but I'm asking for it now. Please put the size of the artwork down. The next part is the formal analysis, which is here. And what you needed to do for that was to not look up information about the art. You're supposed to just look at the artwork and use the vocabulary learned this year. Mostly at the beginning of the year, we did this. We talked about what makes a successful composition. We talked about color. We talked about line. We talked about texture. We talked about shape. We talked about all the elements of art that come together to make a successful piece, single piece of artwork. The formal analysis requirements are listed in my presentation. They don't have to be in yours. So my presentation has more slides than what is going to be required of you because I've added information slides. This is information about what you need to have in your formal analysis. These are all the words that you need to have within your formal analysis. So if you don't have them yet in your formal analysis from this worksheet activity, then you need to rethink your formal analysis and add them. It will be very helpful for you to put the buzzwords from here, the required vocabulary, in bold so you know that you've covered them. That's what I did here. First artwork, information on the right. Then you can have the word formal analysis in the next slide. Then you have the formal analysis. It should take up the whole slide. The biggest should be 15 font. Any bigger and it's not enough information. Then you have your content analysis. Content analysis came from, should already be done, these questions, these content questions. These are the questions. Is there a story or particular message behind the work? I found out some information using a few different sources. As soon as I read about the work and about Franz Marc's life, I was able to answer these questions in full. The question of look up the artist and include biographical information. Does anything you learned about the artist's life relate to the artwork you're looking at? This is one of the most important content questions, and it deserves its own slide. So after you read about the artist's life, and maybe you read about what other artists or scholars say about this artist or the artwork itself, is there any information from what you read that will help explain why that artist made that artwork? So for Franz Marc, his painting of horses, there's no humans, it's just horses. It's bright, bold, beautiful colors. Why did he do that? Well, his life, he was a German expressionist, and expressionists were more interested in expressing the inner feelings than capturing realism. It's not a very realistic painting of horses, but it has an emotional, expressive way of describing the horses. He was an expressionist. They used their paintbrushes and palettes more freely and in tune with their inner feelings. Their style was characterized by simple shapes, bright colors, and gestural lines. Bright color choice has a deeper spiritual meaning to Marc in his practice, and he would give emotional meaning to specific colors. Blue was used to communicate masculinity and spirituality, femininity, and joy with yellow. Red was used to symbolize violence. In blue horses, we see the use of blue, yellow, and red. The horses are almost otherworldly in their appearance, and we see the animal in a whole new way and appreciate the rounded beauty of the horses and their inner energy. Perhaps part of Marc's interest in spirituality was his original plan of studying theology. So after I learned that through his biography, very simple from Wikipedia, said that he first started to plan studying theology and then he went to art school. So yes, studying theology would make you have a foundation of spiritualness to you and to the way that you think. And he was part of also pantheism, which talks about the spirituality and beauty of animals versus people. So that's why I'm guessing he doesn't usually put people in his work. It's mostly just animals because it shows the beauty of animals without humans, that they are more beautiful and they are more pure. That was what I read about Franz Marc. So after seeing this, I'm like, oh yeah, there's no people in this. It's just the horses. And yes, it's very expressive. He was a German expressionist. Yes, it's very bold, beautiful colors, very highly saturated. If you are still missing information for this part, the content analysis, if you didn't answer a question, you may find more information to guide you from theartstory.org. That's a wonderful site that has a lot of information about particular art pieces and artists and their lives. One of the tricky questions that you had to answer that I'm going to give you more information about now for the final presentation is the question, what is the function and purpose? Why do you think they painted a picture of horses? Why did Franz Marc paint a picture of horses? What was the function? So what I did was I went through all of these functions that are specific to artwork, and I chose a few because it can be more than one for a single artwork. They could have a practical function. It could be a cup that you can drink out of. It has a practical function. I can drink out of this cup. But maybe it has a symbolic function because it symbolizes certain beliefs or ideas without representing them. Maybe it's a cup that is used for a particular ceremony or a particular culture. It's still a cup, but it has a symbolic function as well as a practical function. So these are all different functions that you can and should add on to your answer of what is the function and purpose. Because if you are confused about that, this will help you a little bit more. So that's why this slide is in there for you, for your information. Then I go on to my second artwork. Second artwork is a print by Dürer, formal analysis. My formal analysis using as many of those vocab terms as possible. Content analysis, here are my questions that are answered. There they are. Media, now I'm done with each of them. Now I'm going to compare and contrast them. Again, you should have this information already completed from before break, or March break. You did this. So down here, this is where you compared and contrasted the two works. And you just put them into the slide presentation. You make sure that put the two artworks together on the same slide, put the word compare and your bullet points of how they are similar, and then contrast and how they are different. And then we'll talk a little bit more about works cited page at the end of your presentation. That's how your presentation should be laid out. We will talk more about how it's going to run during the final exam of actually presenting this information to the group.